and wellness doctor working in Rutland. And I'm honoured this evening to be doing a customer presentation talk. A little bit of arm twisting going on to get me to do it. It's my first sort of national talk for Zinzino, so I'm going to relish this opportunity to share my passion with you. And it is a privilege to be able to present some amazing products. For those of you who already are using the products, that's brilliant. And it's going to be even more exciting to be able to share some of these amazing products for those of you who are prospective customers who've been interested in this or heard about it. So Zinzino is a Scandinavian company, and they are producing some of the best sort of wellness products. Predominantly, the sort of core product is balance oil, and it's something that I take myself. I recommend to my clients, my family and friends, and those clients are ones that come to my clinic in Rutland, so that's Vasana. Now, just a little background about me. As I mentioned, I'm a GP. So sometimes patients or clients ask, why does my doctor never talk about wellness products? Why don't they ever talk about supplements? Well, here I am. I'm a doctor and I'm talking about this. So it's a novelty for everyone, I'm sure. I take these products, like I mentioned, and I recommend them, as I said, to my clients, family and friends. A little bit more about my background. I'm flitting backwards and forwards, so you have to bear with me a little bit. I used to work in the army. I was a major as a GP, as an infantry major, deploying all around the world. So despite my youthful looks and my long hair, that's all due to COVID and what we do in clinic. But I've experienced a lot, and I hope I can bring some of that experience to this presentation. So at the risk of boring everyone, let's start. So we want to feel good and stay fit and be healthy. So when clients come into me, or when patients come in to see me, they come with usually some sort of concerns. Usually it's mainly focused on skin concerns, or it might be internal concerns. It might be worried about their health. And that's my job. My job is to invest in their health. And when I started out in aesthetics, I was searching for something that I could give patients to help them work on their internal health, something to help improve them, something to bring them back into balance. And after researching and testing out different products on myself and asking friends and family, even clients, about their feedback and what they found about products, it's Zinzino that really captured it for me. So health at the moment is on everyone's mind. And as we come out of lockdown, as we emerge back, blinking back into the world, health is on everyone's mind. And I think this talk is something that I'm going to try and put across. Investment in your health is key. Investment in yourself is even more important. And my approach is from a wellness aspect. So not one thing is the answer. It's a holistic approach. And I will just say that Zinzino health products, Zinzino products, supplements are a key component of that. So what I know so far, what we know, is that health-related problems are increasing, and it's that cliched question, it's time to ask why. So in this current age where science and technology, in the last 100 years, some of the advances in technology have been amazing, from things that we take for granted, like antibiotics, to the discovery of DNA, science has progressed massively, but we've all got that question on our minds: is why are we suffering with chronic disease more and more? Why is it that despite all the advances in medicine and science and technology, why is chronic disease now reaching pandemic proportions? And, I can confidently say pandemic proportions because we've got a map of the world here. And without going into too much detail, we all know that, infection diseases can cross borders. But if we put aside the infection diseases, those side of things, and we concentrate on things like obesity or heart disease or stroke, why are these increasing? And worryingly, and not to put too much of a dampener on your Monday evening, we're starting to suffer with these chronic diseases at a younger and younger age. I was listening to a talk by Dr. Colin, who's one of the new advisory doctors for Zinzino, and he reminded me of a story of where, used to go into a cardiovascular unit, so an area where people were being treated for heart attacks, and predominantly those people were, in their maybe 50s, 60s, maybe 70s. That was a kind of average age. When I was a junior doctor, that's what we were expecting to sort of see patients. But now we're starting to see patients who are much younger. We're seeing 30-year-olds who are suffering with heart disease. And the question is, why is that happening? So society has more problems on its hands, more than COVID, more than infectious diseases. Actually, there's that kind of hidden pandemic going on, and health issues such as dementia, diabetes, and depression are increasing at an alarming rate. So let's skip back a few thousand years or hundreds of years, and we go back to the dawn of modern philosophy and thought. Let's take Hippocrates, for example. Let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. And the modern interpretation of that is quite simply, you are what you eat. Now, for me, medicine always has a place. I'm a doctor, I'm a GP. Medicine has been my life now for years and years. So there's always a place for medicine. And medicine for me is about treating people acutely. We can treat diseases, infectious diseases. Medicine has a role to play, but preventative medicine is where the trend is going now. Preventative medicine is the word on everyone's lips, and we're starting to slowly realize through presentations like this, and I've listened to illustrious presenters, people like Dr. Paul Clayton, Dr. Colin, wellness experts, much more advanced in their knowledge about why we need to readdress what we're actually putting into our bodies and why that's so important for preventative health. So if we can tackle things like obesity and diabetes, years before they're going to manifest, then why would we not do that? And at the risk of digressing and probably getting cut off, I'm joking, I'm sure I wouldn't be, about talking about food manufacturers, and we'll go to that in a second, we need to start thinking about it. Now, we have a amazing picture here in front of us. We've got fennel, we've got turmeric, I think that's paprika, and we've got coriander there, and we've got oil. The only reason I know that is because I've been cooking at home for the past few weeks using a well-known company, Gusto. Without advertising them too much, let's go back to Zinzino. So the point is there's fresh ingredients there, and it reminds me of what food is meant to be. It's not meant to be processed, it's not meant to be packaged. So let's try and understand first why diseases increased so much in recent times. We used to eat food from Mother Nature. Well, we still do, those of us who cook fresh, we still eat fresh, but our diets are interspersed with processed foods as well. So when we think back to how our grandparents used to eat, now for me, that springs to mind traditional Indian cooking. So, my grandparents, they wouldn't have necessarily bought a curry pre-packaged. If you think back to that last picture, that was essentially spices, mounds of them being used in cooking. Spices that are rich in polyphenols. These are things that I'm going to discuss a bit later on. But basically, our food that our grandparents, our great-grandparents were eating were full of vitamins, minerals, phyto and micronutrients, beta glucans, bread that was baked in a bakery that, wasn't processed, heavy unprocessed flour, rich in beta glucans, fibres and healthy fats, and a good balance of omega-6 and omega-3. In Britain, we're an island nation. Fish should be the majority of our diet. We're surrounded by sea, but that's something that seems to be increasingly missing from our diet. So as I was saying, our grandparents would have eaten like this. And we, for those of us who are a bit older, we probably still remember this sort of food being cooked, food being made. It took the whole day to prepare a meal sometimes in our household when we were children. And that's where the richness comes from. And then we take a step forward and we're skipping forward to processed food. So today we eat a lot more man-made food. It's lower nutrition density, it's high in sugar, many empty calories, low in fibers, less healthy fats, and the list almost goes on. So this is where we need to start thinking or listening or thinking about the idea of omega-6 and omega-3. So many of you have already heard about omega-3. It's a marine-based essential fatty acid. And we know that it's important for our health. Revert back, cod liver oil, those sort of things, those were we were sort of pumped full of them when we were younger, and that sort of drifted away from our diet. But what we realized is that many people don't know what omega-6 is. So just to explain, for those of you who maybe are sure what is this? What is he talking about, omega-6 and omega-3? let me go into a bit more detail. So when you think of your cells in your body, every single cell has a fatty acid layer. We call that the cell membrane. And this fatty acid layer needs to be in a certain ratio of fatty acids, so omega-6 and omega-3. And that's what nature intended us to, that's how we've evolved. And one of the most important fatty acids are omega-6 and omega-3, and both of them are essential. So you can't produce them yourself. We can't sort of make them internally. We do need them from our diet, and you need to get them from your food. So omega-6 has a mechanism that promotes inflammation. So you think of omega-6 as an accelerator for inflammation, and omega-3 is a brake on inflammation. So for example, let's not sort of put inflammation in a bad way. You know, when we cut ourselves, or when we're sort of initially unwell, like with an infection, we need that acute inflammation in the body to sort of that healing process to kick in. But what we don't want is that acute inflammation to turn into chronic inflammation. Think of it as omega-6 sort of switching on acute inflammation, the acute inflammatory process, sorting out what needs to be sorted, and then starting that healing process. But imagine if that inflammation kept sort of occurring like a dripping tap and it wasn't turned off completely. Well, let's put that analogy in with man-made food. So man-made food that's high in omega-6 is that dripping tap. If we're constantly eating foods that are high in omega-6, then what's happening is that tap is just dripping away. And if we don't have enough omega-3 to turn that tap off, what we end up with later on in life is chronic inflammation, and those things that we were discussing, or I was discussing earlier on, which is obesity, diabetes, those things that we're thinking, well, hang on, medicine has advanced so much over the years, but why are we still suffering with them? Well, it comes back down to what we eat. So the higher your levels of omega-6 in your diet, the kind of dripping tap that's going on, and the less omega-3, the less like that tap is going to be turned off. So our DNA, I'll try not to be too technical, and I hope you're still with me on this. So our DNA is meant to have one part of omega-3 and one part of omega-6. So this is the coding for the cell. This is right in the cellular structure. This is the kind of computer program, if you want to use that analogy. It's the coding for our cell has to have one part of omega-3 and one part of omega-6. And over time, the better ratio, that's, you know, science and sort of research, World Health Organization studies have shown that actually a 3-to-1 ratio is what's beneficial. So that's 3 parts omega-6 to 1 part of omega-3 is that kind of perfect ratio. That's where we need to be. That's where we function best. Now, the shift that we've got in the food industry has changed to more man-made convenience food that includes things more like plant-based, cheaper oils such as corn oil. And these plant-based oils are high in omega-6 fatty acids. So every decade, we've seen an increase in the omega-6 fatty acids in our food. And now that we see in Europe, we have a 15-to-1 ratio. And this is just getting worse and worse. So I'm going to put on these slides and talk them a little bit more. So what this slide is showing is that, let me have a little summary for you. I'll probably digress a little bit. So our DNA is formed from 1-to-1, so 1 part omega-6 to 1 part omega-3. Science recommends, or we function best at a 3-to-1 ratio. There's been a turning point, 1960s, that's what the slide is sort of pointing to, where man-made foods, or synthetic food or processed food, ultra-processed food, food that has a long life, sits on the shelf and creates more profit for food manufacturers. That's where the turning point started coming in, which then started to alter our ratio from 3-to-1 to 4-to-1. But as time has gone on, it's sort of increased. So the levels of omega-6 has increased. So that's manifested in our own bodies with a ratio of 15-to-1. And now we reach the present day, which is where we're hitting ratios of 25-to-1. And I'm going to explore that a little bit more now in these slides, where we're going to delve into a bit more detail. So we've got a set of scales here and they're out of balance. So in conclusion, we lack key nutrients and we have an imbalance of omega-6 to omega-3. So what the imbalance is showing is that omega-6 is outweighing the omega-3 in our diets. So that's the so what. So what, Dr. Sunny? What are you saying to me? How is that affecting me as a person? How is that affecting me as a person? I'll tell you how it affected me, and I'll share with you my result later on. Reduced brain function. You know, that fogginess, that kind of, this is all anecdotal. I'm sharing my experiences with you. Reduced brain function, where that kind of fogginess, that lack of sparking initial kind of fast memory recall that you remember when you were younger. For me, that was, remembering patient lists off the top of my head. I remember when I was a junior doctor on ward rounds and consultant would ask me, who is this patient? I'll be able to tell them the name, I'll be able to tell them the condition. But as time has gone on and that brain function has decreased, a little bit more muddled, a little bit more foggy on the brain. And what have I put that down to? I just thought it's aging, but actually no, it was a deficiency for me. Hair quality decreases. Now, for those of you looking at me, and this is lockdown hair, someone the other day was joking and said to me, what is it that you put on your hair? So I don't put anything on my hair just grows. And for me, taking omega-3 in the form of balance oil has increased hair growth, nail growth. So that's always a good anecdotal story for me in clinic, because everyone then is like, give me the oil. But I digress, I'll carry on. So reduced heart function. Again, I'm going to share some personal things with you. As I've got older, I've hit my 40s. I'm going to be 42 this year. I'm starting to think ahead a little bit. If I've got an imbalance in my ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, what am I going to look like in 10 years' time with my heart function? I'm from an ethnic background, I'm Asian, I've got a 20% more likely chance of cardiovascular disease, heart attack and stroke. So this is very important to me. This is a personal journey. Skin loses elasticity. Again, this is so important for me in clinic. It's all very well for me as a wellness and aesthetic doctor doing treatments like dermal fillers or Botox or wrinkle smoothing injection treatments or any of those things that I do in clinic to improve skin elasticity. But what about the internal benefits? How can I improve this for my clients in clinic internally? Well, the answer is here, and I'll discuss it with you. Organ function is reduced. That's something that's quite difficult to measure sometimes, unless you've got some state-of-the-art equipment, stuff that you have in hospital. And joint and muscle pain. I mean, as we get older, we just put this down to aging, don't we? That my joints are aching, my back is hurting. Oh, I must be getting old. Well, is it to do with a deficiency? Is there an imbalance going on in the body? Is it that I have too much omega-6 going on compared to omega-3? So what we see on the outside is often what is unseen that is crucial. So this is where we're going to go more in detail. I'm going to take you into an inner dive now. We're going to go right into the body and we're going to discuss how this affects. So we've already discussed brain function, hair quality, heart function, skin elasticity, inner organs and joints and muscles. So we spoke a little bit earlier about the cell membrane. So if I can get you to rewind a little bit, I spoke about how the essential fatty acids, omega-6 and omega-3, they make up, I've just discovered the mouse pointer again, apologies for that. I'll just use that now and make more sense. This is the cell membrane, and this is made up of omega-6 and omega-3, the essential fatty acids that we can't make internally. Now, if we're out of balance, and we saw those scales previously where omega-6 was much greater than omega-3, if we're out of balance, we have reduced function. The cell membrane starts to become hard and rigid. Nutrients get in more slowly and waste products come out slowly. Think of the cell membrane as a gatekeeper. Let's not dwell too much on the negative, but the cell membrane is a gatekeeper. And as it becomes more rigid because of the increased levels of omega-6, nutrients are going to get in more slowly, waste products will come out slowly. So if we think of this, it doesn't matter what I eat, doctor. It doesn't matter what I consume. I can, for those of you who are training, for those who are athletes out there or, who are into their training, I can take as much whey protein or I do this and nothing makes a difference. I don't gain weight. I don't lose weight. Well, maybe it's something to do with the cell membrane. Now, I have to share this with you because it was something that opened my eyes to initially in the journey. Is omega-6 comes from plants. Okay, let's just hold that thought. Omega-6 comes from plants and omega-3 comes from the marine environment. We ourselves, or we are essentially marine organisms. That's where we came from. Thousands and thousands and millions of years ago, we evolved from the sea. So it makes logical sense that our cells want to live in a sort of marine environment. They're in a fluid filled environment. Our cells don't need a rigid structure. They don't need to reach up to the sun to photosynthesize. Our cells want to be bathed, they want to be fluid. And that's why omega-3 is so important. If you've got too much plant-based, which is where omega-6 comes from, if the imbalance is there, then of course your cell membrane is going to become more rigid. You're not going to have a good functioning cell. And it doesn't matter where the cell is. It can be a brain cell, it can be a liver cell, it can be a skin cell, it doesn't matter. So to achieve a healthy cell membrane, we need a ratio of 3:1, a balance between omega-6 and omega-3. And then let's skip on to a normal functioning cell. So green is good, green is let's go. This cell is functioning. Doesn't matter where it is. Let's go with a brain cell because we all want to be sparking, especially on a Monday night when doing a presentation. So nutrients get in easily, waste products come out easily. This cell is a normal function. It's not a super cell. It's not it's not a superhuman cell. It's just a normal functioning cell. It has a ratio of 3:1. However, the other cell that we're looking at, where the ratio is imbalanced, it's not normal. And this is the key thing that I'm going to try and start putting across in this talk now, as I've gathered my thoughts and collected my anxiety together. What I'm trying to put across here is that because we have a deficiency in our diet, because we're not getting enough omega-3, our cells are just not functioning the way that they're meant to be. So let's try and get our diet, let's try and get our lifestyles, let's try and get back in balance. So, are you in the danger zone? So the imbalance of omega-6 and omega-3, we've started to discuss that. I hope that's starting to come across in the concept. We need this ratio 3:1. Low levels of omega-3 are not good. Inadequate polyphenols in our diet. Polyphenols are important. They're chaperones for these essential fatty acids. It's what gets them into our cells, and low levels of vitamin D. So we want to be at a ratio 3:1 or lower, but where we're most likely are is 15:1. Now, why have we got an iceberg picture here? It's almost cliched, isn't it? The tip of the iceberg is what we see, but what we don't see underneath is what's going on. So what we can see, what the iceberg analogy is meant to be showing is that, we can see healthy people at 3:1 ratio, but there is a danger zone where the majority of people are probably at a 15:1 ratio, and 25:1 is where not even your children, I've got 2 young children, I've got 2 young daughters. I was at this ratio. I'm 42, and this is where I was sitting. So how can we find out where we're at? We are dealing now with test-based nutrition. As a doctor, this is so important for me. If I'm advising someone on a supplement, on a food, I'm advising them on how to improve their lifestyle and their diet, I need to show them the test. We're all wanting to see a test-based decision-making process. So, would you like to take a test and find out your results? That's what I ask my clients in clinic. Would you like to take a test that's going to help you? It's going to help me to show you an improvement in your diet and your lifestyle. We can show you a benchmark. We can show where you're at, and then we can show you how there's going to be improvement. So you can take a test and you can see your balance. It's a simple dry blood spot test, and you can take it at home in just a few minutes. In this sort of time, this has been amazing for me. I can do online consultations with patients, clients, and they can do the test at home. I can even walk them through it if they need to, but it's a very simple test. And if your result comes back at 3:1 or better, then you're one of those rare people. Okay, and we saw the tip of the iceberg. The tip of the iceberg is just a little bit of what we can see. Actually, there's a huge undercurrent. There's an underground problem going on, or underwater problem going on. So 617,650 balance tests worldwide. That's a huge amount of data. This is unparalleled. I mean, I would challenge anyone to give me data of this size. So we have performed, I say we, Zinzino, and we're going to where that's performed, 117,000 balance tests worldwide, over 500,000 tests. have been performed. So we've got more than 500,000 real results. Million always sounds better, doesn't it, when you say million? So these tests are analysed by an independent laboratory, the Vitas Analytical Services. So the test isn't done by us, it's done by as an independent laboratory in Oslo. And you can see here all the official customers of Vitas, the lab that we use. So the likes of prestigious, Harvard University, University of Cambridge, King's College, Max Planck Institute, some new kids on the block like Zoe. That's a new research that shows how important, a company that showed how important gut health is to our lifestyles, and the University of Oslo. So some people will be cynical about this. They'll be like, of course, we've all come across testing. What springs to mind is the car testing of emissions, and even I was cynical when I first started on this journey. So I'll share with you my cynical journey, which is, what if these tests aren't real? What if the results are being doctored? Well, Vitas is I cannot vouch enough that Vitas is an independent service. All of these senior independent research facilities across the world are using Vitas, and it's held in the highest regard. And even the World Health Organization use them as well. So you can get your personalized and anonymous test results, and in that test we measure 11 different fatty acids, which gives us 6 different nutritional indicators. So I was shocked to get my own results. I don't think I would be, I'll be honest with you, my diet leading into my Zinzino journey was bad. I'd skip meals, I might miss breakfast, I'm going to be busy, I'm a doctor, I'll get some coffee, and then I'd have a huge meal at the end of the day, which was completely imbalanced. And then in between, I'd need a bit of a pick-me-up. And if you've ever watched any of my lives, I've talked about eating a Snickers bar here and there just to get my energy. All I was doing is a recipe for disaster, just building up that imbalance, building it up. And my actual result was 24.2 to 1, 24 to 1, 24 times as much omega-6 in my red blood cells compared to omega-3. I was completely out of balance. And how was that manifesting for me? As I mentioned before, I don't think my memory was as good. I was, difficulty with exercise. I just, I didn't have motivation to do things. My skin was losing some of its elasticity. That's not good for a wellness and aesthetics doctor. So all those sort of things that I've spoken about before, those were starting to manifest. And then I started worrying about the future. I was starting to think, hang on, 10 years time, what is that going to look like for me? So you can actually track your own progress with Zinzino test results. You can take a second test after 4 months of taking Balance Oil every day. I take my Balance Oil every morning. It's all done using a unique test number, so it's completely anonymous. When I submitted my results, it wasn't that they said, oh, there's Dr. Sunny Dhesi, he's just done the test. Oh dear, let's put his result in, and I'm sure he's going to be shocked by that. No, it's all anonymous. They just need your height and weight and which country you're from and your gender. And what I will tell you in terms of my journey is that my initial result was 24.2 to 24 to 1 essentially. And after 4 months, I dropped down to 4 to 1. But I already knew that I was better because of all the things that I've discussed about memory, energy levels, digestion, all those sort of things had improved dramatically. I already knew that there was going to be an improvement. And where do I sit now? I sit at about 2 to 1. The ratio of, it's just dropped down a little bit lower. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But anything at 3 to 1 or lower is brilliant. And I'm thrilled with that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking about it. So our findings show that there's a shocking 97% of people globally are out of balance, 95% in Europe, 98% in Australia, 99% of people in the US. And we look at those findings of those, over 600,000 test results in more detail, we see that only 5% have a ratio of 3 to 1 in Europe. And amongst those people already taking an omega-3 supplement, they have an average balance of 7 to 1. So that means 20% of all people tested have this result. So some people out there are taking an omega-3 supplement. I'm not being judgmental when I say this, but you're taking an omega-3 supplement and hoping it's working, but you've probably got an average ratio of 7 to 1. It's not getting you anywhere. And the big number, 75% that don't take an omega-3, they have an average balance of 15-1 or worse in Europe. So what can we do to help fix this problem? We have some of the best minds. We have Zinzino have gathered a scientific advisory board with some of the brightest minds in the field of wellness and nutrition. And I'll be honest with you, as a doctor, as a GP 2 years ago, I knew that this was important, but I wasn't acknowledging it. What I know now is life-changing. Having listened to Dr. Paul Clayton, one-to-one training sessions with him, the wealth of knowledge there in terms of pharmaconutrition, how food can make a difference to how our bodies are functioning is amazing. And we look at some of the CVs from Ole Edey, Dr. Angela Rizzo, and Dr. Abraham, and they've been working for more than 40 years in the field of health and nutrition. And I can reassure you that, I'm impressed by their knowledge. If there's, in fact, Dr. Colin is not on there, and I should mention him as well. Dr. Colin is a UK scientist, is also top in his field for research and specializes in elite sports performance, rehabilitation, restitution. And, Zinzino have given us all these scientific, scientific heroes. They've given their name to some incredible patented products that Zinzino manufacture themselves. And, research and development is so important. And that's what attracted me to Zinzino, is that here is a company that's researching and developing and patenting their own products for our benefit, to protect that knowledge and then to share that knowledge through people like myself presenting tonight. So we can bring you back into balance in 120 days. And the reason why is it 120 days? Because that's how long it takes your red blood cells to renew. So for those who are wondering why, 120 days, where does that come from? Red blood cells, that's how long it takes red blood cells to renew. So when you take that first test, it is 120 days later that you're going to have, most of your red blood cells are renewed, and that's going to give us a true reflection of what's going on in the body. So what I want to share with you this evening is, this is a unique test-based formula that's going to bring you back into balance. Of course, everyone who makes an omega-3 based oil claims it's the best, but what happens is that when you take a fish oil out of fish, it starts to react immediately to the environment, to oxygen. It becomes oxidized, and it also reacts to temperature as well. And it's by adding strong antioxidants into the formula, it stops it from going rancid, essentially. For those of you, who've ever had an omega-3 oil or cod liver oil that's been left out, when you taste it and it's been out for a while, it tastes off. You don't want to take it. That's because it's oxidized. So what Zinzino have done to solve this problem is to use polyphenols from green immature olives that are high in antioxidants, which protect the fish oil from turning rancid and chaperone the oil to each and every cell in your body. Antioxidants, for those of you wondering, antioxidants are like a shield of armor that surrounds the structure, or the cell, if it's antioxidants that you're taking in, or for example, in the case of balance oil, think of it as a shield of armor around a cell, for example, which then stops free radicals, oxygen, from stripping away things and then oxidizing it and turning it rancid. So balance oil is just like eating fresh, real fish. It's blended together with vitamin D and vitamin E, and that's what makes it balance oil. It makes it a unique and powerful tool. And when it comes to health effects, so it doesn't oxidize, and it's also important to know that it's wild fish. So it's never farmed fish, and it's dosed by weight. I always wondered about supplements. How can you take one supplement for someone of this, 100 kilogram weight, and then you're advising someone else who's half that weight to take, the same supplement? Well, the great thing about Zinzino balance oil is it's dose dependent. So you take it for your weight. It's personalized. And then we have a water soluble version of balance oil. It's called Aquax. It has the same ingredients, plus an additional ingredient called Aquacell, a unique natural emulsifier that dissolves balance oil in water. And this basically means that it becomes water soluble. So you can add it to juice or water, and it mixes in. It mixes in really well. And then, this is really key for me as we discover more and more about how animal proteins maybe are not so beneficial for us. This is an amazing thing, a patented vegan balance oil. It's a great product for vegans who are interested in, who are interestingly test higher than average, because obviously as a vegan, your diet might be higher in omega-6 in plant-based essential fatty acids. You won't get a source of a marine-based omega-3. So Zinzino Balance Oil, the vegan version, comes from marine microalgae. It comes directly from the source. It's high in EPA, DHA, and DPA, and it's entirely contaminant-free. So I should also mention here that Zinzino has worked tirelessly for the last 3 years to make sure its products are all natural. That's a first in the industry. Many companies claim their products are all natural, but in reality, many of the excipients and compounds used aren't. And I must say that, I wouldn't advocate this unless I was really trusting in the formula. It is a natural product. So we also have balance oil capsules or soft gels called Ascent. These were designed primarily for the American market, as they tend to prefer soft gels, but it's also great if you travel. It's very easily to slot into your bag. So, for those summer holidays that are hopefully coming for all of us in the future, you could take a box of Ascent so that you don't have to carry a bottle of oil around with you. And it's a bit more palatable for those of you who don't perhaps like the idea of taking fish oil. Again, it's dose dependent, it's weight dependent, and works in the same way as balance oil for the benefit of your cells. Everything is made to the highest levels of quality and care. So when it comes to production, you can see here that all the certifications such as halal, informed choice, naturally sourced ingredients, friend of the sea. It's really important to have a product, to have a company that believes in standing by a product by making sure it's certificated, that we can get that stamp of approval for our products. And we're also about to, because we've left Europe and we are now an independent sovereign nation, we're now going to become, Zinzino is now to become Informed Sport accredited for the UK, which means that even elite athletes can take our products safely, safe in the knowledge that when they're competing, that they can take this as drug-free, safe products. And the results, so if you've been taking balance oil for at least 4 months and then take a retest, what results can you expect? We know that 95% of everyone taking the Zinzino balance oil products gets a ratio of near to 3:1 after 120 days. 95% of us who've taken balance oil get near to a ratio of 3:1. For me, that's unheard of when I first started exploring this world. 95% of people taking a product see results. It may take a little bit less time, it may take a little bit longer. We're all unique, everything's bespoke. And for me, it just took under 6 months to get to a ratio of 2:1 from 24:1. And the reason is that the oil works to actually get you into balance. Unlike those fish oils that you might find on the shelves, or kind of the over-the-counter products, I sometimes call it, because it doesn't oxidize like they do. So let's just go into that a little bit more detail. If we take, for example, so if you need any more convincing, then let's look at it in more detail. So an independent laboratory in Norway looked at different types of omega-3 products. For a while, krill oil was really popular. But we see that when you put it at 70 degrees Fahrenheit, that's room temperature, it takes about 5 hours before oxidation starts. So if you leave krill oil at room temperature, in 5 hours, it starts to, if I can use the word rancid, it starts to oxidize. And when you look at the concentrated omega-3 product, it took 9 hours before it started to oxidate. And then let's take that childhood favorite, cod liver oil, which many of you, I'm sure, have had a spoonful of that when you were growing up. It took 15 hours before it started to oxidize. But balance oil takes 35 hours before it starts to oxidize. So what does that tell us? That as balance oil progresses through the body, you take it orally, it gets heated up to 37 degrees because that's body temperature. It goes through the digestive tract. It's going to take 35 hours for that oil to oxidize. So it's going to reach your cells, the cells that need it, the cells that want to get back into balance. It's going to reach it in a less oxidized form. In fact, it's probably not oxidized at all. And that's the unique formula working. Compared to those other examples, balance oil is unique in its formulation, which is why it can last for 35 hours in our bodies before it oxidizes to give the best health results. So who needs it? Well, I'm going to say everybody needs it. You need it before you're born. and you need it to your last breath, because it helps us in so many important areas of life. So for the developing baby, the developing fetus, it's so important for brain development. There is so much research out there that shows that mothers who are deficient in omega-3, that then transposes onto the developing baby, and that can have long-term consequences for brain function, for heart function. It's not something that you can measure easily, but there's plenty of studies that show, epidemiological studies, public health studies, that show how important omega-3 is important for the developing baby. And then as we grow older, it's important for brain development, strengthening the immune system, growth, skin, hair, nails, reproduction. There's studies out there from, again, from Norway that show how sperm counts and fertility can benefit from taking omega-3 supplementation. And it's an amazing product. It can do so much for us from cradle to grave. So 18 health benefits are approved by the European Food Standards Authority. 18 health benefits that we're permitted to say, and some of these are the most important functions that we need. So for me, from my personal perspective, normal brain function, I wouldn't be able to work at the pace that I can work at without being in balance. Normal heart function, again, I was worried in 10 years' time, will I be, am I at risk of cardiovascular disease, heart attack? Normal immune function, I won't be cliched and talk about immune function. It's on everyone's mind. And then we go into normal vision, normal teeth. This is an extensive list, and it does so much more. So let me carry on. So reaching a balance between omega-6 and omega-3, I think hopefully what's come across in this talk is how important it is to reach that balance. And we can do that with what it seems like a simple product. There's a lot of research and development's gone into it, but such a simple product can have such a massive benefit for our health. And the overall health benefits, we looked at that cradle to grave picture, we want to be reaching 100. We want to have quality of life when we're older. And that leads me on to something that is, what more can we do for our health? And it's, that golden triangle for health, which I'm going to talk about next, with the health protocol from Zinzino. So part of the health protocol is xenobiotic. We have a dietary fiber blend that strengthens our gut. Those 8 different naturally dietary fibers are metabolized in the large intestine. And what's so important, it's food for our own gut biome, our gut bacteria. I will use an analogy here to keep it simple. We know the importance of probiotics for those people who've been on antibiotics, who have been unwell. Probiotics are great, to replenish what we've lost. But continued use may not be so beneficial. But prebiotics in the form of a dietary fiber blend like xenobiotic is so important. So imagine the gut is like an urban warfare zone, and your gut bacteria, your soldiers, they're fighting hard every day, dealing with digestion. They're fighting the good fight. And let's take probiotics that are, bacteria that are grown in stainless steel vats with tender, loving care by people in white coats, and you shove them into that urban warfare zone. They're going to be cannon fodder. Some may survive, hopefully, some may get there, but majority aren't. But what about those soldiers that are fighting the daily battle, day in, day out, your gut biome? Why don't we feed them? And that's what xenobiotic is. Xenobiotic is food parcels for our soldiers in our gut biome. So, I could go on forever about the gut. We're ruled by our bowels, but I take this and I can say that I'm in control. Continuing that golden triangle, Xtend Plus is a multi-immune food supplement. So it's it's a complex micro and phytonutrient supplement that I've ever seen. It's loaded with nutrients. In fact, if you take 4 capsules a day, you're getting the same amount of vitamins and minerals and trace elements that you get if you ate 9.5 kilograms of vegetables and fruits and nuts and seeds. Now, of course, we'd all love to eat that amount of fruit, nuts and seeds, but it's not feasible sometimes, not realistic. So this, for me, is about giving me energy. It supports bone and joint function, and crucially important for the immune system as well. So the Zinzino Health Protocol, it's 3 products that make a difference. What 3 products can I have in my diet that are going to make a difference to me on a daily basis, keep me functioning at normal function? Step one is the balance oil. It adjusts your body's omega levels and supports normal heart and brain function. Step two is restoring, keep your gut healthy. Don't be ruled by your bowels. And it contributes to balanced cholesterol levels as well. And the step three is that boost. That's where Xtend Plus comes in. And support your innate immune system. I could go on for hours and hours, but I'm sure that I'm exhausting some people's patience. So I'm going to just move on to my next slide. So there are additional products as well that are available from Zinzino. So I'll quickly mention these. Protect is specifically designed for your immune system. It contains a unique beta-glucan blend. If you've never heard of that before, beta-glucans are critical for immune function. It's something that primes our first line defense. So if you think of our first line defense, we pick up an infection. It's our white blood cells that are rushing to the site of that infection. Beta-glucans help to prime those white blood cells. They are involved in the sort of receptor process, but what they do is they prime the immune system to be even more active, to be even more that first line of defense. And you can, of course, research that as well. It's, type in beta-glucans into Google and you'll get a wealth of information. And then this is, I'm going to say this is personally an important product for me, for Viva. Viva is a natural Afron. It's derived from saffron. It's what we call an Afron derivative. It's a patented extract. It's blended with vitamin B and C, and it can make you feel more relaxed. It can help some people sleep much better. It can help with mood as well. There's plenty of research out there that shows that Afron can help with mood stabilization. It works fast. It works for about 5 out of 6 people, and you'd have to take my word for it. But I took some Viva before I came off of this talk. That's probably why leading into the talk I became a bit more relaxed. It works for me. I stand by it. And then there are other products as well from Zinzino that include Lean Shake and Skin Serum. I've used all these products myself. I've tested them out. The quality is there, and I stand by those as well. So I'll quickly just go through the crux of it. So, with all these talks always, what's the catch? How much is it going to cost me? So I'll just show you the UK pricing quickly. Here is the retail price for the regular balance oil kit, which includes 2 tests. But if you'd like to save money, I recommend to my patients and clients that if you buy a 6-month subscription, it gives you a 58% discount. So you pay 142 instead of 336, and then just £28 a month plus the postage for your oil, or less than £1 a day if you want to look at it like that. And then for the health protocol, great value. I mean, before I came across health protocol, some people were spending hundreds of pounds a month in supplements, but the retail price for your kit would be 438, and that includes 2 of everything as well as 2 tests. But if you subscribe again for a minimum of 6 months, you save 49%. So it only costs you £224 and then £69 a month, which is incredible value for some, 3 products that are going to make a difference to your health. So that's it for the Zinzino product overview. I know a lot of information to take in, and I urge you to get back to the person that's introduced you to this, who's invited you to this talk, with questions. Please, questions, challenge. What was Dr. Sunny talking about? Tell me more. Remember that what we eat today, the food that we have access to, just isn't the same. It doesn't have the same nutrient profile. It's nutrient deficient, what we buy off the shelves. And we need to think about strategies that we can build in so we can access the healthiest outcome for ourselves, for our friends, for our family, for ourselves, more importantly. Take the guesswork out of it. Get yourself tested, a very simple test like I mentioned. Take some balance oil every day and start to feel the health benefits, and you won't regret it. I just want to say I've gone way over, but thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've had have a wonderful rest of your evening, and please do get back to whoever invited you to this talk. Thank you so much.